We have some breaking news for you today. Our sources confirm that Omega Luke has left his director of football role from FM22 at Manchester United, and this is apparently to take over the same role at Barcelona. Our sources also confirm that this series will be, as the kids call it, epic. There is a slight catch to this series, however, which I'll explain once I show you how I'm going to do this. I have made the Barcelona manager Xavi the assistant manager, and I'm going to give him all the responsibilities for the matches, including tactics and team selection by holidaying and not ticking these two boxes. Delegates that responsibility to my assistant manager, which is Xavi, meaning that he is technically the manager, and I will be solely in charge of the transfers and contracts for the club, transfers in and transfers out, just like a director of football. But here's the catch to make this an even harder challenge. Barcelona are in a lot of debt, as we know, and their wages make it a struggle to meet the maximum squad salary. So in this series, I can only sign players with the money that I make from players that I sell. For example, this first season, Barcelona have sold 90 million euros this summer and only paid for 2 transfers, costing a total of 38 million. So there's roughly 40 million pound in the bank. So I've got to sell to buy every season to hopefully bring up some transfer budget so that I can actually spend it, whilst also trying to match Xavi's 4-3-3 favoured formation. And my targets for this season is most likely the fullbacks and maybe the left midfield. And with Alejandro Balde emerging through soon in the left back position, I'm going to prioritise that right back position for my first transfer. A player I admire is the Japanese right back in Sugawara, mainly thanks to his fantastic passing and crossing abilities. FIRECUDA could actually be an option if we looked at a future prospect, but he's more expensive. Vanderson could also be a great choice to go for too, and we all know that Barcelona do love a Brazilian right back. A slightly cheaper option could be PSG's Mukiele, who is valued at 7 to 10 million pound less. I'm going to scout these guys mentioned just to see if anything alarming comes up though. Players I'd be willing to sell include Longley, who isn't attracting any interest at the minute, and Marcos Alonso, who is wanted by Juventus, and I'd happily let him leave too. Because without the option of him playing at left back, hopefully Xavi then might select Balde instead. And both players had offers coming in and all from the Serie A for the asking prices too, so I was more than happy to accept all incoming offers. Scout reports are back for the right backs, and I was a little underwhelmed, with only Vanderson who stood out thanks to having that a little bit more potential and only 21 years old. However, I feel like I'm being done for not potentially going for FIRECUDA just because he's 18. He is certainly a future prospect, but I feel like Xavi will just never end up using him and won't develop. So I'm going to risk going for Vanderson instead. 22 to 34 million. It might actually cost me more money than what FIRECUDA would, but that's fine. How much do they want for him? 23 is 14, 23 is 7.5. Okay, I'm actually happy with that. Around about 30 million pound. It's not too bad, really. Contract-wise, it was the right call too, with him only asking for 38k, and I was even able to lower that down as well as the sign-on fee, which meant I could save on wages if I also sold Sergio Roberto. Annoyingly, I couldn't get rid of Longley, who opted to stay and rejected the other contracts. But Marcos Alonso was gone, and we got our first transfer completed in Vanderson. Turns out Sergio Roberto's contract was about to expire, so I just released him. And we welcome both Vanderson and Vitor Roque to the team, who I may actually try and loan out this first season. And straight away I found an important role at Hannover 96 in Germany to hopefully develop next season. And I still have roughly £28 million left in my budget. First game of the season rolled around though, and we face Sevilla at home. And Xavi's first 11 with me at the club, and he's completely ignored Vanderson for Koundé at right back. However, there was a much bigger problem this game. Ferran Torres went down off the ball injured, and unfortunately his game had finished just 7 minutes in. Defensively, we were so poor, and we allowed Sevilla in minutes later to open the scoring. We equalised straight after though through Alejandro Balde's magnificent run. But still in the first half, and Gundogan, in his first start for Barcelona, tackled a Sevilla player and also got himself injured and had to be taken off. Yet again, we were so poor, and Sevilla took advantage of the situation, scored a second to win the game. Both injuries put the two players out for multiple weeks as well. Not a great result in the second game either, and we're yet to win a game. An offer from Porto on loan for Longley with a mandatory future fee might be the only way I can get rid of him. The Champions League draw was made with us being put in Group A with Manchester United on deadline day already, and I also loaned out Eric Garcia to Juventus as an important player. and I was prepared to make one last move for a player if I could get the wages low enough in Ricardo Horta. And I had roughly £90,000 a week to play with. But he was ready to play hardball and wanted 120k a week. I seen his agent's patience was rather high though, so I committed to try and lower it down to my desired 90,000. But he was just being as stubborn and continuously asking for that high amount. I even tried to offer bigger bonuses, but nothing, and he got restless. I had to crack a deal with this final negotiation, so I bumped up a couple of the bonuses, locked it in at 90k a week, prayed, and thankfully he accepted. And despite there being lots of interest, I got the transfer completed at the very last point of deadline day. A solid player who suits Xavi's style of play and can play on both wings. Good value for money, I believe. The transfer window shut and Xavi already has a team in mind for the match against Valencia in 2 days' time, including starting Horta from the left. He played well, but this game was won with 2 goals from Ansu Fati and Lewandowski from the penalty spot, giving us our first 3 points of the season. Our results did pick up, although we took another loss away to Celta Vigo, but the end of the October sees Manchester United followed by Real Madrid on the horizon. But Robin Lewandowski is out for the next 3 to 4 months with a damaged Achilles. Oh man, what is this luck? In the only game we played without him so far, Ferran Torres played up there but was not great at all. The following 3 games we relied heavily on clean sheets to keep us winning games. But we are still some way off Real Madrid in first place, trailing 6 points behind them, and currently relying on a 20-year-old Ansu Fati being our top scorer with just 6 goals. But unfortunately, a well-taken Mason Mount goal defeated us at Old Trafford as we lose 1-0 in the Champions League. And with an in-form Real Madrid up next, it was not a great week for the Catalan boys. Real Madrid destroyed us from kickoff, playing a straight-through ball that Rodrigo put home a second after the starting whistle. In the second half, Dani Carvajal doubled Madrid's lead before Andreas Christensen gave us hope, making it 2-1 with 20 minutes to go. But despite pushing on, Vinicius Jr. scored an injury time to confirm another league loss and 2 losses in a row, also putting us in 3rd place and now 9 points behind the unbeaten Real Madrid. We even lost a follow-up match away to Sociedad to make it 12 points. I could genuinely get sacked here. But the Mallorca game right after maybe was a turning point, and Ferran Torres actually stepped up. Not to mention Ricardo Horta banged in a beautiful free kick, and we finished the game 3-0 winners, actually playing like Barcelona should be playing. Even taking that performance into the following match of the Champions League, beating Manchester United. And while we began our run into the festive period, Real Madrid continued to win games and stayed 12 points ahead. That was until December, when they took a hammering against Real Betis. And then they lost to Levante 2-1. And they also drew games in between against Sociedad and Mallorca. And while all that was happening, we couldn't stop winning games. Still without Lewandowski, who is just about to return, but it's January, and although the board have given me another £40 million, I can't spend it. So maybe I need to cash in a couple of these wanted players for a backup striker, because I think I have found a player that would be perfect for that role. Perfect to help us catch up to Atletico Madrid. What? Somehow Atletico overtook Real Madrid at the top of La Liga during Real's really bad run, which is not exactly the title race I really intended to have during this season. I need to somehow make some money off of players like Longley to provide a backup striker, but now nobody wants him. Another option is to sneak in a free transfer at the end of the season, and Taremi is a good option for this tactic as he is a quality striker. And being a profit-only director of football means I don't have to sell anybody for bringing in Taremi. Means he is literally a free shot. I'm not counting his wages involved in the director of football profit-only challenge. I've also just noticed that Xavi's first match of the new year is Atletico Madrid. PSG then came in with 2 huge bids. First for Ferran Torres, who I would be willing to sell, but I maybe got a little too greedy and asked for far too much and they cancelled. The other was for Frenkie de Jong, and I have no intention of selling him yet until a summer or two's time. Some good news is that Xavi snapped up the manager of the month for December, so congrats to him. And then Frenkie de Jong was unhappy because I wouldn't sell him to PSG, so I told him and his agent it wasn't enough, and we settled on a £90 million asking price. Man City tried their luck with a pathetic bid for Ansu Fati, which I rejected next. The guy is only 21 with huge promise, and I don't want to let him go anywhere under 100 million. Then finally, PSG came in to make this interesting, offering £50 million for Ferran Torres, and I was happy to accept. He's an okay player, but I know I can use that money to bring in a much better option for this team. The Atletico Madrid game is incredibly feisty, and João Felix brutally slapped one of our players from behind, earning a straight red card after just 8 minutes. Well deserved.
He is atrocious, isn't he?
And Marcos Llorente was also an idiot in the first half and shoved a player over already on a yellow card, and Felix shouldn't drain the bathwater because Marcos is on his way for an early bath too. Come on, now we just need a goal. Annoyingly, it took until the 81st minute before Koundé played Torres down the wing and his cutback found Ansu Fati to prod home the winner. And that win bumped us up just a point behind Atletico Madrid, with Real Madrid having a game in hand, which they won 1-0 thanks to Renato Sanchez's goal, leapfrogging us both to go to top of the table. Annoyingly, Taremi chose to go to AC Milan, however Ferran Torres agreed terms with PSG and will be leaving the club. So we now have £50 million to play with. Who do we bring in? So the striker I mentioned I liked earlier was none other than Gabriel Barbosa, Gabigol, so I stuck in a cheeky offer. He just looks like a Barcelona player to me, and I really think he would be a quality backup option for Lewandowski, who's about to return from his injury very soon, by the way. Flamengo came back with a negotiated offer, which I brought down to 13.25 with add-ons up to 16 million. I managed to get Barbosa to agree to a squad player role, which was perfect, and although he wanted a high wage, his agent's patience was very short, so I crept them down just slightly. Now I have Chelsea bidding for Araujo, and they are persistent, going over 107 million, but I don't want to sell my best defender just yet. I thought it would be funny to try and offer long layout to Chelsea instead to see if they would be interested in taking him off my hands for me. Then Manchester City and PSG also put in offers for Gabigol, and I really started to get twitchy. So I put in a higher contract offer, way overpaying really. And there is a lot of pressure for the guy's signature now. Jules Koundé asked for ridiculous wages, and eventually, after many failed contract discussions, he submitted a transfer request. Really wish I'd saved Todd Bowley's number. Sad times as club legend Lionel Messi signed for Manchester City for £3.4 million. I would have done that too. 1-1 away to Sevilla in the next match, and Lewandowski smashes his penalty into Africa. I am being a little bit harsh. It was his first game back for months, and he did score the opening goal of the game. Honestly, Chelsea are crazy. This is like their 7th bid, and I'm willing to see if they want to go overboard, and apparently yes, £154 million is acceptable. I might have to keep Clement Longley at this point. Barbosa, annoyingly, also moved to Manchester City, and Araujo is now just a work permit away from breaking Chelsea's transfer record. Back to the centre-back situation, De Ligt was the first player that came to mind, but his price tag was way too high. Then I seen Upamecano, and I realised this could be a better choice because of his release clause, and when comparing them both together, there is not a lot of difference at all. I think I'm going to commit to Upamecano. I think 65 million, that's a steal. Especially when I'm selling Araujo for double the price. Because he's decent, he's quicker than, and stronger to be fair, than De Ligt. So I actually prefer that. We know that's good. And if I look at him in comparison to Araujo, it's not that Araujo though, it's the other one, Ronald, then there isn't again much difference. I know that Ronald Araujo is probably a little bit better on the ball and defensively, but for the fundamentals of a centre-back and what works, pace, it's Upamecano. He's better at that. He's just a year older, probably, you know, going to cost me less than half of what he was going to sell Ronald Araujo for, so I think it's a good deal. Oh, you are kidding me. He's just signed a new contract. How soon? How soon was it? Was it the start of this year? A month ago. I hate that. I tried going back for option number 1, but unfortunately Bayern were really playing hardball and wouldn't accept anything less than what I just sold Araujo for basically, and I couldn't physically bring myself around to pay that much money for just one player. And I'm starting to feel like clubs are slightly aware that we have a lot of money about to come in and are taking advantage of these valuations. I tried some of the best centre-backs on the game and I was running out of options. I even got a little bit desperate and started looking at players that should never ever wear a Barcelona shirt. But I think I found a replacement eventually. I like Kalulu. He's quick, he has decent mental attributes, maybe not the best technically just yet, but he usually has a good potential on the game. And I think although my scouts don't rate him very high in potential, like I still think he would have a potential. He's a lot of money. He is a lot, but maybe I can manipulate it to be a little bit less. Oh my god. It says 53 to 79 million. You're taking the mick out of me saying 96. 75. 75 plus 14. That's not what I'm suggesting. Plus 2.5. 75.5 million pound. At least it's still, half of what I'm making out of Ronald Araujo. Contracts were easy. He was happy as a squad player and not asking too much money. Now we just have to find our backup striker because I've lost 2 of the attempts already into Remy and Barbosa. This transfer window is not going how I planned it at all. I realised that with Vitor Roque out on loan, I could just bring in a loan deal myself, and Broja fits that backup striker bill quite perfectly, to be honest. As long as Chelsea are happy with him being just a squad player, we are golden. And they seem fine with it. Results on the pitch were not fine, however. We got the deal completed for Kalulu, and the more I think about it, the more I don't mind it. He's young still and can still develop into a quality defender. And not to mention that we can use the money left over from the Araujo deal in the summer and bring in somebody else should we need to. Obviously, Upamecano could be a really good option back then, and we can completely transform our defence at that point. But right now, I think we're in a good spot, and we've got money left over to plan for the next season. Also getting the Armando Broja deal done too. Xavi had different ideas, however, for Kalulu. Put him right back with Frankie de Jong going centre-back. I mean, they still won 3-0, but, why? One last look at the transfer list, and I seen Nathan Ake for £23 million. And I kind of wish I'd seen that before I got Kalulu. Wouldn't normally accept bids from Atletico Madrid, but an optional bid at the end of a loan deal for Serginho Dest is quite intriguing. With the transfer window now closed, we need to focus on our form, because we have slipped 6 points behind Atletico again. Interestingly, Real were knocked out the Copa del Rey, a competition that Xavi seemed to take very seriously, thankfully. Our league form has also improved after the winter period, and we began scoring some wonderful goals. Lewandowski was back doing what he does best, and I was very much enjoying our football. And Pierre Kalulu seemed to be enjoying himself too, playing mainly at centre-back now. That's a run we needed right before El Clasico when Real Madrid come to the Camp Nou. Not to mention, we put ourselves in the Copa del Rey final. And it was Bilbao who would meet us there. El Clasico was always going to be tight, and it took a scrappy goal from Lewandowski to put us ahead on the hour mark. However, we held on strong until a long ball over the top and bad defending from Jules Koundé allowed Vinicius Jr. to fire in an equaliser. We drew the next game as well, annoyingly, meaning we are back to 6 points behind Atletico, who are really playing well. Don't ask me how, but Salzburg kept a clean sheet in both legs of the Champions League, and they knocked us out 1-0. I'm baffled by that. The league game before the cup final, Mallorca have a penalty, but miss the big opportunity to take the lead. And Barcelona don't give out many second chances around here, and Fati popped in the rebound from Gundogan's unreal effort. Lewandowski in the second half made it a comfortable 2-0 win. Copa del Rey final time, and my man Kalulu opens the scoring within just 4 minutes. What a signing, and then in the second half, Ansu Fati releases a sumptuous free ball that Gavi got on the end of, and we lift the cup at the Bernabeu. We dropped silly points the game after though against Rayo Vallecano, but other than that, we can't stop winning games with just 4 left, including Atletico Madrid on the final day. And there is still a chance for an outside opportunity to have a crack at that title. And that's exactly the motivation that this team needed. They were unstoppable at the beginning of May, destroying Osasuna 3-0. Getafe didn't stand a chance either when Lewandowski scored within 6 minutes, and then the tiki-taka came out to play and they couldn't get near us to take the ball off of us, and Gundogan is firing home from long range before great football yet again into a wonderful strike from Rafinha. And even 6th place Villarreal found themselves 3-0 down at home before picking up just a consolation goal. Whereas elsewhere, this Valencia goal stopped Atletico Madrid winning the league in just the 91st minute as well. They are still in the driver's seat, but it literally comes down to the final day, and all 3 teams could win it. Even though it came down to the wire on the final day, the man that stepped up was 19-year-old Gavi, who not only smashed in the first goal, but the second one as well, taking all 3 points. However, it wasn't time to be cheering, unfortunately, because Carlo Ancelotti's team won 5-0 on the final day. And La Liga's sorting rules are done by head-to-head. And although we drew with Real in March 1-1, we also took a loss against them back in October, and that does not go in our favour. And even though we got a higher goal difference and on the same points, Real Madrid are crowned champions of Spain, with all three teams finishing on 89 points. I'm sorry, but that has to be the closest title race of all time. At least though, we won that Copa del Rey. And we start the summer transfer window already in credit by £87 million to make some new signings. There's no time to dwell on not winning the league. We needed better centre-back, and we can hopefully get Upamecano, although he wants outrageous wages. Hopefully, we can come to some agreement. Have also set up scouts to look for future Lewandowski replacements. His injury did drop a lot of his attributes, and we still need a backup at least. But let's get this contract sorted out first, and 350 grand a week isn't too bad. We can hopefully bring that down a bit, and there we go, 325 for a permanent Araujo replacement, who remember we sold for 150 million, which is 2.5 times more than what we were just about to pay for Upamecano, so I think that is very good business. And with £87 million left in profit, with spending 65, we've got £22 million to find a backup striker this season for Lewandowski, without selling any other players yet. Players I wouldn't mind selling this season is Rafinha, good player and only 27, but I noticed Michael Olise wants to move, and I think he would be a better fit personally. Christensen again, he's good, but with Upamecano coming in and Eric Garcia coming back from loan, I could cash in. To be honest, I was hoping there would be a lot more interest in my squad players, but it's very quiet at the minute. And I genuinely might have to give up trying to sell Longley. Vitor Roque had a good season at Hanover, scoring 7 goals and getting 4 assists. He may need another loan deal though, however, to keep developing, but he kept Hanover safely in the Bundesliga, which was the main plan. I also discovered too that on the tactics screen I can ask Xavi to change my tactic pick to the one that he suggests and all the instructions that he believes suits the players. Whether that is what he would do or not, I'm not 100% sure, but that is the tactical instructions of tiki-taka possession football, and that's what he plays. The champions Real Madrid are wasting no time strengthening their side, putting in a bid for Kulusevski. So I decided to go on the hunt for a backup striker for under 20 million, and there were a few recognisable names, but the one that stood out for me was not a name I have heard of before. Betarame, playing in Mexico, might be a cheaper option to go to and sit behind Lewandowski this season while we wait for Vitor Roque to develop, and an offer of £8.5 million accepted. And on the day that we signed the Argentine striker, Bayern looked to rock the boat by bidding for our goalkeeper ter Stegen, who also wants to go, unfortunately. And Bayern Munich matched the asking price of £94 million. I went to get my ideal replacement straight away in Diogo Costa, but unfortunately he's unwilling to talk after the Euros, annoyingly. We do agree to sell Serginho Dest though, so that's more money we can now spend, as well as loaning Vitor Roque to Mallorca for another season, and I'm excited to see how he looks after another year starting every game. Just as we completed the deal reluctantly to sell ter Stegen to Bayern Munich, I put in my second offer for Costa, and this time he is willing to talk, and we get a contract agreed for a very cheap wage compared to the guy we just sold. Norway won the Euros, by the way, beating Spain in the final. No idea how they did that. Anyway, we got Costa signed, and although it sucked losing ter Stegen, we got a very good replacement, and we made an extra 20 million. So I guess I gotta work out how much I got left to spend. Okay, so I had £87 million roughly after last season's transfers, ins and outs in profit. Then we made another £85 million for ter Stegen, giving us £175 million. Costa was 65, leaving us with £110 million. Upamecano was also 65, and Betarame was 8.5, leaving us with £36 million in profit to spend. And now we are finally getting bids for Longley too, as well as the £11.75 million to add for Serginho Dest. So the 8.25 from Longley amounts to 56.5 million. You still following along or confused like me? And we may need a winger because Rafinha's picked up a very bad injury. Brais Mendes was the name that caught my eye, as I absolutely adore his mental and technical attributes. But unfortunately, he just signed a new contract. Of course, I already mentioned Olise. He's a little bit pricey, but could he be the one I go for? I was, however, smart enough this time to check the transfer list, and I noticed Kingsley Coman out there for 57 million, just 0.5 million more than what we've got. But if I could raise a little bit more money, I could also get a Yatharbal. But I couldn't sell anybody that I didn't want to keep, and I couldn't afford to buy any of these wingers just yet, until Abde had a wanted sign from Villarreal, which could be my gateway to a better option, so I offered him out. But again, no offers coming in for the player. No offers, and now zero interest either. So instead, I looked for a cheaper option to develop, and Tallis Magno fitted the bill. He was young and can play anywhere across the front three positions with decent attributes, and most importantly, we could afford him. And I eventually got a deal done for the Brazilian after they accepted a 13.25 million. And we got him signed the day before the first game of the season against Celta Vigo. He started on the right hand side as Xavi's 4-3-3 and scored weirdly from a set piece. And we won 4-1-2, which was great. In the second game, he was on fire, scoring an absolute worldie, curling one into the top corner. But we actually drew that game 1-1. Our window closed and I was pleased to see Brais Mendes go to Real Madrid on loan weeks after rejecting me. Although we won the next two games, September was not kind to us, picking up 2 losses, including to Villarreal in the league. Already meaning we are chasing the title after just 6 games. Mine October was not much better, dropping more points in the league with 2 draws and getting spanked in Munich by ter Stegen's new club. November was a better month, especially in the league, and Lewandowski scored in every game. We didn't play any difficult teams in the league this month though, but we also didn't concede a single goal, and we started scoring many again, including Rafinha coming back from injury and Gavi hitting absolute rockets in off the crossbar. We did also win another game in Germany, this time in Leverkusen, and it was 6-2. But then we got beat by Manchester City at home. In the league, we are currently sat in 3rd place, not as bad as I feared. 5 points behind Real Madrid, but 20th in the Champions League after 5 games. That is shocking for Barcelona, with a very tricky December ahead, including El Clasico. But once again, we got in trouble before that match when Valencia took the lead from a corner, and we had to wait to the second half and rely on teenager Gavi to snatch us a draw and just a 1 point. And I have no idea what's happened in the Champions League this season, another loss. When El Clasico came around, our confidence was already low, and then Bellingham scored within 4 minutes. It stayed 1-0 until the 66th when Robert Lewandowski fired us back level and gave us something to build on, but then we threw that all away, allowing Vinicius Jr. to do a mazy run and put Real Madrid back in front. But thank God, because we know how important these head-to-head matches are after last season, Rafinha's cross dropped to the oncoming De Jong, who smashed it into the top corner in stoppage time. And you're probably thinking, that's amazing, Luke. Maybe Xavi got the size momentum from this end of the game and took it into the next game and smashed the team 4-0. Well, you literally couldn't be more wrong. Ending the year in 4th place and 10 points behind an unbeaten Real Madrid. I decided to check the end of contract players, and I could approach Matoma, who I thought would be an excellent squad player for us next season. Not bad for a free transfer, you know. We also started the year with a loss too. I genuinely might have to fire Xavi before I get sacked. He did win the Super Cup though. However, I have £43.25 million left and I wish to spend it, so I do keep checking the transfer list, but nobody is standing out to me right now. My scouts, however, found this 6'7" striker from Flamengo who's only 17 called Anderson, and I'm very curious about him. I've decided I'm going to snap up Ruben Neves, who is so cheap because of the transfer to Saudi Arabia, and I just cannot turn that down. But of course, Porto matched the bid as well. Our Champions League fixture was incredibly important. We thankfully beat Trabzonspor 3-0, so we need to win our last game to qualify for the playoff stage at least, which we managed to do comfortably, fortunately, leaving us in 18th place. Honestly though, the league has just been thrown by Xavi. Ruben Neves chose us over his boyhood club, and I'm absolutely buzzed with the signing, and that leaves us with £39.75 million, which I might leave to the summer. Or for a laugh, I could try and bring back Neymar to Barcelona. Then I seen Valverde on the transfer list, and Real Madrid accepted my bid. But he doesn't want to join because of the rivalry, you absolute straub. We got back to winning ways in the league as Tallis Magno scored the only goal against Girona. But Las Palmas knocked us out of the cup. In the Champions League, we got drawn against Newcastle, who got a red card within 20 minutes, and thankfully we capitalised on that, with Lewandowski scoring 2 goals within 7 minutes towards half-time, and that allowed us to carry on putting on the pressure in this first leg, eventually going 3-1 up after Almiron pulled one back for Newcastle, but Ansu Fati made it 4-1 before Lewandowski secured his hat-trick from the spot. We lost the second leg, but it doesn't matter too much, and we go on to face Sporting in the round of 16. Speaking of losing though, Villarreal gave us yet another league defeat. And at this point, we might as well kiss the league goodbye. Back to the Champions League though, and Tallis Magno scores from another set piece. And in the second half of the first leg, we double our advantage through Frankie de Jong, cruising through to the quarterfinals with a draw in the second leg, where it's another Portuguese team who await us. Once again though, we are taking heavy losses in the league. Remember, this isn't me who's at fault here. This is Xavi as manager. I'm just a director of football. Was it me who went all the way to Porto in the first leg of the Champions League quarterfinals, only to get our ass beat 3-0 and come away losing all hope? No, that was Xavi. However, this very same Xavi guided this Barcelona team in the second leg after 67 minutes of being 3-0 down to 3-1, which 2 minutes later became 3-2 when Abdi scored. And just 7 minutes after that, the impossible comeback looked possible as Abdi scored a third, making it 3-3 in aggregate, taking this game to penalties, but Gundogan, he missed the first one. As does Icardi for Porto though. Both teams then score penalties all the way up to Romario Barro, whose penalty was saved by Diogo Costa, and we somehow progress through to the semi-final of the Champions League, and I'm exhausted. And our opposition for that semi-final? It's Real Madrid. We had 15 shots on goal in the first leg, but it was Rudiger's only goal of the game that decided this half of the tie. He did also get himself sent off because of a reckless tackle attempt on Lewandowski. And Courtois, no shock, took on the man of the match champagne. We were due to face Real Madrid 2 more times before the end of the season, but only one really matters more than the other, because I dare say the league is already won by Real Madrid. We went into the second leg off the back of a fantastic result away from home, but once again we fell to just 1 goal in the second leg. This time it was scored by Tchouaméni. And with Real Madrid already crowned champions, we need to beat them just this one time to have something to smile about this season. Because they also won the Copa del Rey too. And for the third El Clasico in a row, there was just 1 goal scored, but thankfully it was Barcelona. We actually ended the season in the league with some very good results and a strong defence. But I don't know if Xavi is going to last into next season, if I'm honest, because we should be doing way better than this. With £39.5 million in our profit-only budget and Matoma joining for a free this summer, I'm at a crossroads on what I need to strengthen. Although if Paolo Maldini is interested, it's the manager. Thought I'd try my luck, but unfortunately he doesn't want to become anything but a technical director. But then I seen Luis Nascimento, my all-time favourite football manager assistant manager, and I had to try and bring him in, and we can get a deal to suit both parties. Even the comparison between Xavi and Nascimento tells me I am making the right decision here. With similar tactics as well, the only real difference being Nascimento using more vertical tiki-taka, which I kind of prefer. So I'm sorry Xavi, but you're fired. Eric Garcia then drops a bombshell telling me he's going to explore his options when his contract runs out. I do try to persuade him to stay, but he's set on leaving, which leaves me no option but to stick him up for sale on the transfer list. It's panicked me now because multiple players have just 1 year left on their contract, including many starters such as Pedri, and I need to keep the wages down simply because of the registration rules. Gavi was another. In fact, 17 players, all highlighted here, are entering their final year of their contract. Bids fly in for Garcia, with Porto putting in the highest at 39 million. But Manchester United eventually matched that bid. It's a good day though as Nascimento signs as the new manager of Barcelona. Financially, we have huge amounts in the bank now, and that has meant that we've started to clear some debts. Atletico bid for Christensen, and I'm happy if they match the £30 million, which they do, for the man with only 1 year left. And Eric Garcia agrees to go to Manchester United, doubling our profit budget to £78.5 million. Chelsea put in a bid for Van der Sar, but it's an instant reject for me as we spent £31 million on him. Christensen's move to Atletico takes our available budget to £108.5 million, and we are short of a defender. And Jurrien Timber stands out as a player name perfect for this price. He's a phenomenal ball-playing defender and really suits the typical Barcelona style of player. And just $100k a week contract accepted, saving what was $100,000 a week extra compared to Christensen, and I dare say a far better player. Leaving us with £46.5 million in our profit-only budget to spend, which I want to spend it all on this Mexican 17-year-old wonder kid who looks incredible and has a perfectionist personality, but maybe just not yet. Make that £57.5 million because we just sold Abdi for $11 million. And I am also confident Vitor Roque is ready to be that Lewandowski backup for us, meaning we can sell Betarame, who I was struggling to register, to Crystal Palace to £10 million, which is actually a profit, taking the budget now to £67.5 million. But I don't know whether to spend it now or in January. My new manager, Luis Nascimento, has his first game away to Osasuna, and the vertical tiki-taka shone through when Gavi scored within 10 minutes of the season and Lewandowski crept in a penalty to secure the win. Nascimento's choice of starting 11 was as I expected it to be. He also got the same result in the next match and used near post corners. Respect. I think I much prefer this guy to Xavi already. Then something really caught my eye. Rafael Leao has just a £61 million release clause. Now, I like Ansu Fati, and he has unreal potential, but Leao, that's a different beast. But we also just signed Matoma, and Thales Magno is developing well too. So I might hold off now, but that really tempted me. Because we also have Mbomio, who came through the youth academy, who I got my eye on as well. So with the window closed for now and no other new signings coming through the door, and with this first start in a Barcelona shirt, Vitor Roque introduced himself to the Barcelona faithful by opening the scoring in a 2-0 win against Valencia. Our first test of the season came against Manchester City, who took the lead after just 5 minutes at the Etihad through of course Erling Haaland, but we pulled it back level around 10 minutes later. Once again though, the Norwegian scored, putting City back ahead in the first half, and he got his hat-trick again from a corner on the hour mark. Ansu Fati got us back to a goal behind from our own corner, and Upamecano snatched an equaliser. But in the 94th minute, Lewandowski missed a penalty to take all 3 points. What a comeback that would have been. But still, the rest of the month was fantastic, and we have yet to concede a league goal. Of course, putting us top of the league at this early stage. And then guess what we did the following match? Thankfully, we retaliated with a huge win against Atletico Madrid with this 1 goal from Thales Magno. And we very quickly got back to winning ways. And then it all went wrong. Some injuries, including Ansu Fati breaking his arm and Lewandowski pulling a hamstring. That led to a 0-0 draw away to Vallecano, as well as 2 losses back-to-back against Fenerbahce and Celta Vigo. But Vitor Roque's goal of the match against Getafe put us back to winning ways. Another loss in the Champions League to Chelsea, followed by a win in the league. And that bad run of form sees us drop down to 3rd place behind the 2 Madrid teams, who probably extended their lead when we got slapped up by Villarreal 3-0. The gaffer punished this team by rotating 90% of the side, and it was Matoma who took advantage, scoring the only goal against Sevilla. Another loss in the Champions League away to Ajax though, which is worrying, but league form has improved. Just 3 points behind top now, but 20th place in the Champions League phase. And El Clasico is up next. With only 9 goals this season so far, it could be time to look to sell Lewandowski, because Nascimento is never going to drop him. And Liverpool came in for 8.25 million, which would give us £75 million in total to find another option. But how could I possibly turn down Harry Kane on a free transfer in June? There are not a lot of options for us right now, and Harry Kane for next season could be incredible for us, so I cannot pass up that, considering it will cost us nothing. But he turned me down for PSG for less wages. Good news though is El Clasico is won by Barcelona when Thales Magno scores in the 1st minute, rounded off by Lewandowski scoring from the penalty spot again, which, check this out, is his 7th league goal. All of them are from penalties. And now you can see why I'm willing to sell him. But he had other ideas and put himself out for the rest of the season, which is also rumoured to retire Lewandowski immediately.
You are joking, aren't you?
No.
His transfer to Liverpool fell through, of course, because of the medical. So I'm just going to pull the trigger on Rafael Leao and hope Nascimento plays him up front. And I'm also going to spend the remaining bringing in a striker for the future in that 6'7" Brazilian striker from Flamengo I mentioned before. Although I sold Van der Sar to Bayern Munich for 21 million as we didn't have enough foreign player spots left to register him. But we got both targets through the door. Meanwhile, we had a slightly dodgy January, if I'm honest, almost losing in the Copa del Rey, getting battered in the Champions League and dropping points to Osasuna. We just survived, finishing in the playoffs of the Champions League, and only hanging on to the top of the league because Atletico have played a game less. We somehow scramble our way to the semi-final of the Copa del Rey without winning a round in 90 minutes, but we have Atletico in our way to the final. It seems Ansu Fati might be the biggest benefiter from Lewandowski's absence. He stepped up playing up front, or even might be from the right and scoring goals and taking penalty kicks too. He does have it in him to be a world-class striker as well, to be fair to him. Unfortunately, Vitor Roque had a terrible time up front against Valencia, and despite having 19 shots on goal, we couldn't hit the back of the net. He did, however, score in the Champions League in the knockout playoff round, first leg versus Feyenoord. But it's another match that we lost at home. We had to rely on extra time in the Netherlands to progress and next face Bayern Munich in the round of 16, but we've won our last 3 games in the league at least. However, so have Atletico and now sit top of the league with a game in hand. Ansu Fati showed a moment of brilliance in the Copa del Rey semi-final and then smashed in the only goal of the game. Don't get your hopes up too much, they battered us in the second leg. It was a completely different story in the league fixture, however, as we held the majority of the possession and the front three were deadly and combined well to get Leao's goal to open the scoring, and a bit of luck led to Fati's blocking the clearance and he tapped in to win the game 2-0. But of course we lost the next fixture against a weaker opposition. We welcomed Bayern Munich to the Camp Nou and Jesper Lindström gave them an early lead. We bounced back just 2 minutes later in the round of 16 first leg when Ruben Neves scored an absolute worldie off the crossbar. However, the difference maker was a back post corner scored by Kim Min-jae. And it was their other centre-back De Ligt who scored the second leg and eliminated us early from that competition as well. So with only the league campaign to focus on now, we look to tough fixtures against Villarreal and Real Madrid at the back end of the season. Atletico are in the driving seat despite us sitting top having played a game more, and Real Madrid will have to hope for a miracle to reclaim their title to make it 3 in a row. Man of the match against Celta Vigo was the new Portuguese attacker Rafael Leao, who was involved in all 3 goals, setting up Talles Magno for the first before scoring 2 goals himself, in which each time he showed his talents with a few dashes of individual brilliance. But we are just so inconsistent. It was Vitor Roque's time to shine in the next few matches as the young Brazilian really stepped up, and we needed him up front and began scoring a hatful of goals in the following matches during April, including an actual hat-trick against Real Betis. Things were heating up in the league table as we absolutely battered third place Villarreal, but then we drew to 19th place Real Sporting. We now have a game in hand, but only go a point behind Atletico with 2 games left, really needing them to drop points somewhere. But they haven't lost in a while and have Getafe and Vallecano in their last 2 fixtures, whereas we still gotta go to the Bernabeu. It's not looking promising, unfortunately. However, in our game against Sevilla, a scrappy goal seen us take the lead because incredible football and a defence splitting run and pass ended with Ansu Fati doubling our lead, and in the second half, Rafael Leao was free on the far side from a very fast counter-attack, and we seen the game end with a 3-0 win. In the last El Clasico of the season though, it took just 1 goal to snatch all 3 points at the Bernabeu. Fati's penalty sneaking just under Courtois for the win. But Atletico weren't going to slip up against Getafe and they battered them 3-0. Although we dominated the final game of the season, it was a hilarious goalkeeper error that seen us steal the win. But this result would mean nothing unless Atletico had some difficulties in their final game of the season. But unfortunately, they won a penalty just after 8 minutes that João Felix smashed home. However, Rayo Vallecano had a free kick launched into the box, Atletico couldn't clear it, and they equalised. And even though they had 22 shots and Vallecano could only create 1 shot on target, they held on and dragged Atletico Madrid to a draw. Meaning, yes, on the final day of the season, we pulled off the comeback the fans have been crying out for, and we win La Liga for the first time at this club. I'm not saying I'm a genius because Nascimento produced some worrying results this season, but this was definitely a very promising season to build upon for next year. Once again, we go into pre-season with £40 million in our profit-only budget, and while we celebrated our win, our rivals were winning the Champions League. So I got to work bringing in talents for the future like that Mexican new gem my scouts found earlier, a nice little release clause on him. They also found this absolutely insane Italian winger who's only 17 and cost me £5 million. A bargain. Financially, we got a good bank balance and our debts are now down to 270 million, so we're going in the right direction. We got a bid for Ricardo Horta. He's now 31 and not good enough to take us any further, so it's time to cash in on him. Our 2 new signings are in the door, but Andros is staying at Santos Laguna on loan for the rest of the season to hopefully gain some first team football. Consigli, however, I am promoting to the first team and I've made him available for the B team and the under-19s. Annoyingly, Horta rejects his move to Betis, so I may move him to the B team as well. One thing I do love is Kalulu's development. Good God, he's a special player now. My scouts keep throwing me unreal names with this talent they found in Argentina who looks like he could be an insane future centre-back, but he's just signed a new contract so wouldn't be interested in moving just yet. Also, how mental is this goalkeeper that came through our youth intake? I forgot to mention it, but Robert Lewandowski did indeed retire. I might hire him though, which I did as an under-19s coach. First game of the season and we concede a penalty after just 5 minutes. Good start. Even better when Costa saves it though, and from there on the momentum completely shifted. Even in the first half alone we destroyed them with goals. Ansu Fati with the first, and then a first half hat-trick from Rafael Leao, who it really feels like will be taking on the task of the talisman for goals this season, despite Vitor Roque leading the line up front. In the second game, Leao also picked up another hat-trick, so it's 6-2 for him from the left. And then we lost a win in the 93rd minute. Champions League fixtures are in, and back-to-back matches with Arsenal and Liverpool, that will be very difficult. Before the window closed though, we also sold Ricardo Horta to Villarreal for the price of 11.75 million, which is pretty much what we spent this window already. Vitor Roque got himself off the mark for the season in this 2-0 win over Sevilla with a lovely little finish. But it was time for the first El Clasico of this 4th season. And at the Bernabeu, a corner which wasn't cleared was played to Kalulu, whose lovely ball played out wide to Pedri put us 1-0 up. But in the second half, hey, we take them when they happen for us. This is the worst defending I've ever seen, and Vitor Roque is laughing all the way home as we win 2-0. Even though we still win, I'm puzzled by Nascimento's choices for positions for players. Like, why is De Jong and Timber switched natural positions? But still, hard to be mad when you just beat Real Madrid 2-0. We nearly went through the whole month without conceding a goal until we went to Italy and got done 2-0 in the Champions League by Inter Milan. But overall, I feel Nascimento has really made us a much more defensively stronger side, as well as putting in the more situations where we tend to score a lot of goals compared to when Xavi was in charge. Rafael Leao has also been a game changer as we see him score here against Monaco in the Champions League. The only goal of the game as well. And we sail through October without conceding a goal. That is fantastic. And after 10 games, we are still unbeaten in the league, 5 points clear of Real Madrid, and our players are dominating statistics, especially in the average ratings, which are incredible by the way, and 2 of them are defenders. And it's great to see Vitor Roque step up into the striker role after Lewandowski's retirement, and his finishing ability was really on form at the start of November here against Eibar in a 2-0 win. But of course, that first loss was going to come eventually, and it was a tonking from Atletico Madrid, 3-0. Thankfully, we bounced back with a huge 4-0 win against Betis. Back to winning ways, you say? And then Arsenal beat us 1-0 in London. Nah, never mind. Followed by getting a draw against Girona, which unfortunately puts us back on level points with Real Madrid now. And into December, and Liverpool are turning up at the Nou Camp, beating us 2-1 in the Champions League, which is not looking great for us by the way in this league phase. Currently down in 18th place after 6 games with only 9 points. Back in the league though, we continue to perform and the goals are spread out too. We killed Villarreal early with 2 goals within 10 minutes by Pedri and Gavi. And Ansu Fati closed it out in the second half to make it 3-0. We did, however, unfortunately drop more points at home to Getafe, which annoyingly drops us down to 2nd place going into the new year, which shows how tight it is at the top, with both teams only losing once so far. But of course it's January, and I'm getting bids for Pedri, totaling a measly £72 million, which I'm obviously going to reject. But they just continue to keep sending me higher bids. And they went higher and higher. But I stayed strong, he didn't want to leave, so I just kept rejecting them. He's just way too good to sell for any price that low, and I don't want to sell him. Not that it counts for too much, but we did beat Real Madrid in the Supercopa final 4-2. Leao scored a late winner for us in an away game against Mallorca to snatch 3 points. And we progress in the Copa del Rey while in Ibiza. We obviously need to win games in the Champions League to qualify, and it didn't start well when the former Barcelona player Trincao scored the opener against Sporting after 21 minutes. However, just 5 minutes later, Ansu Fati answered back with an equaliser, but then it became the Vitor Roque show, who was just on fire in this game, capitalising on goalkeeper mistakes. Starting in stoppage time of the first half, he picked up his 2nd and our 3rd goal in the 5 minutes after the break, before scoring his hat-trick with 15 minutes to go. 3 points we really needed. Closing towards the end of January, I was looking at the youngsters we have, and Nascimento hasn't exactly been giving them much game time, and I feel like sending them out on loan will benefit them just like it has for Andros and Anderson, who, as you can see, have been playing a lot of first-team football. And Andros especially has been growing nicely in his development. Las Palmas came in for Mbomio, who funny enough is managed by Fernando Torres, and with regular starts I'm happy to send him there. Eibar was the only team willing to offer Consigli first-team football, so I'm going to reject the other 2 team proposals. Our last Champions League game was in Nice, France, and we had to rely on a 92nd minute Vitor Roque goal to win the game 2-1. And we end the league phase in 11th place, so we'll have to play in the playoff, but we have reclaimed top spot in La Liga after Real Madrid took another loss. Consigli eventually ended up on loan at Osasuna, which came in late, who turned out to be an even better team for him to go to because they have perfect training facilities and they're in 19th place in the league, so they'll be needing someone of his quality to pull them out of trouble. In the Copa del Rey, we found ourselves with a penalty with the score tied at 1-1, and the keeper makes a great save, but no worries, Vitor Roque will score that open goal, or so we thought. And guess what happened? Yep, They scored in the 94th minute to win and knock us out of the competition. It seemed to have rubbed off into the next game in the league, as well as the first leg of the Champions League playoff, as well as we lose 1-0 to Villarreal. No sweat, we just beat you in the second leg at home. I'm sorry, what? And yes, I'm fully aware that Ricardo Horta scored the first goal. Thankfully, our league form got a little bit better and we still only lost 1 game. Real Madrid aren't making this very easy though, and we keep asking the question, winning 4-0. And then we lost 4-0 to Levante, who are currently in 19th place by the way. We kind of recovered the month of fixtures, but it was another late goal against Eibar that cost us another win, which allows Real Madrid to go top should they win their game in hand. And we play both Madrid sides next month, with El Clasico coming right at the end of the month. Before that though, an away trip to Betis could be tricky. However, we looked like we were getting back to our best, and Vitor Roque picked up 2 goals in the first half. And in the second half, Thales Magno, who we haven't seen much from this season, scored a third. It wasn't going to be easy against Atletico Madrid, and they surprised us with an early goal from Alvaro Morata. It took 20 minutes for us to finally break them down, and Vitor Roque found the equaliser. But take a look at goal of the season from Ruben Neves, who smashed one in from range. And then he won the game with a penalty right after to make it 3-1. And a naughty 1-0 win led us into the craziest El Clasico game you're ever going to see. Yes, you are reading that right. We beat them 8-1. 8. Hilariously, they actually took the lead in this game, and that didn't last longer than a minute, and then the goals just didn't stop. And Carlo Ancelotti should be fired on the spot for this absolute disgrace, as he was completely tactically outplayed by Nascimento, and this Barcelona team, who were 5-1 up at half-time, continued the absolute onslaught in the second half. One for the record books, I'm sure. A great day for Barcelona fans and for Ansu Fati, who despite missing a penalty at the start of the game, when it was only 2-1, scored a hat-trick, which puts us in the driving seat with just 4 games left and 4 points ahead. But of course, we love to fumble things, and this draw gives Real Madrid hope. And with 1 game left, both teams can still win the league, with our final game being against Alaves, who has the league's top scorer and the highest average rating, Rafa Mir. Also, look at Osasuna fly up to 14th place. Consigli is slaying there and absolutely destroying the league. 15 goals in 15 games with 2 assists. They were in the relegation zone. Consigli and his Osasuna side played against Real Madrid in the final game of the season, where just 1 goal was scored by the Madrid midfielder Camavinga. We handled the task against Alaves very well, however, and despite Leao having to go off injured, Rafinha scored the opening goal. And on the 70th minute, Frankie de Jong's run from deep was met as he smashed the ball in for our second of the game. Alaves had no response, and we win La Liga with 96 points and only 2 losses all season. That's back-to-back, baby. Nascimento has done wonderful things in La Liga to make us defensively like a tank. But the early exits from the Champions League, that needs to change starting from next season. And with so many players wanted and still roughly £40 million in our budget to spend, maybe the squad will change too. Overall, the board are still pleased with our progress, which I feel is rather lenient because we haven't got anywhere close to a Champions League semi-final yet. Although I said the squad might change, Pedri is not a name that I would be willing to sell to Liverpool, and certainly not for that price. But I am really struggling to decide where I can strengthen this squad with my limited budget. And I feel like I maybe need to sell some squad players so that my youngsters coming through can actually get some game time and develop. Players like Andros, for instance, who within a season of first team football could be one of the best players in the league. What does not help him is his natural position is not a role that our manager is using. Because as much as I would be playing them, it's Nascimento's call at the end of the day. I would probably be starting Consigli on the right, as with game time he could be better than Rafinha. But that's the trouble with this side, so many players go ahead of both of these guys in what Nascimento would pick them. Because a best 11 pick puts Magno and Ansu Fati front and on the right, and even then I feel like the order after that would put Gavi on the right, which I've seen him do, and Vitor Roque up front, who, speaking of which, has been really underwhelming and could be somebody I sell. I then got a £40 million offer for Rafinha, who is 30 and just a fringe player, and I had to accept it. Everything went through and he doubled our budget. So I went looking and found a fantastic midfield addition in Moretti from Juve, who looks great at just 23 and costs such a small price of 33.5 million. I accepted another bid for £40 million for Thales Magno, but he rejected the move to Atletico Madrid. Call me stupid because I am, but I spent another £31 million thinking Magno was going to go on this young centre-back with huge potential. And I might have to put him in the B team unless I find him first team football on loan, but let's be honest, he's fantastic for his age. And that allowed me to offer out the other young centre-back on loan as well, called Ivan, who came through the youth academy. With about £15 million on my profit-only budget, I had offers for Matoma, and yet again, I was willing to sell because someone caught my eye. Moukoko for around the £20 million mark. That's a bargain. And once Matoma left, I had an offer accepted for 17.75 million. Sweet. And I also stuck Vitor Roque up for sale too. Even still, the players I wanted to start do not, according to Nascimento's best 11. I guess I can't complain too much if he continues to win games though, and the first game of the 6th season we seem to stroll past a very good Villarreal side 3-0 with 3 different goal scorers. But none of them were Vitor Roque. I may be being a bit too harsh on Roque, however, he played a big part in the next game with a win at Betis, with good build-up play to the first, and then the most selfless assist I've ever seen for Rafael Leao's second. Although that was probably just a really bad shot, because who would pass from there? First 3 games were very good with another 3-0 win, meaning we still haven't conceded a goal. On deadline day, our last couple of deals is to loan Anderson to Alaves for a regular starting place alongside Ivan, while Mbomio is in Mallorca, and right at the death, we also sold Thales Magno to Bayern Munich for 41.5 million, which is great profit and what I bought him for 4 seasons ago. Mbomio is another player who needs game time to progress and hope for first team football. Our first Champions League fixture ended 0-0 against Dortmund and didn't feature Moukoko, who was injured. The second game of the competition went a lot worse. This year we need to go as far in this competition, but this performance at Anfield was an absolute joke. 4-0 was the scoreline, and all before half-time. The mistakes for the 3rd and 4th goals were embarrassing, and yet our defence is supposed to be our strong point as well. Just not on this day. That was genuinely the first game of the season we actually conceded in, and right before El Clasico as well. Good news though is that Consigli has been starting games as well as scoring a goal too. We go into the game against Real Madrid with the upper hand in the league after they lost to Celta Vigo. And the most hilarious own goal was a decider as Tchouameni cleared the ball off Neto into the Madrid goal. Not bad considering we only had 3 shots all game. Of course, we drop our first league points right after that one. But we did get our first win in the Champions League with the only goal of the game assisted by Consigli against Monaco, right before a loss against our Catalan rivals. But thankfully, 2 wins against Sevilla and Bilbao at the end of October still sees us sitting in top spot, with Real Madrid losing another and now in 3rd place. In the Champions League, we're putting together back-to-back wins with a 2-1 win at home to Bodo Glimt, Ruben Neves and Ansu Fati scoring. And then we head to Stamford Bridge for the following game and take the lead through Rafael Leao's header, but Chelsea came back and prevented us from taking all 3 points by grabbing the equaliser, keeping us in a precarious position with 3 games to go with a chance we will need to play in the playoffs. And we have Manchester United next. The rest of November, though, included 2 wins in the league and a very frustrating draw against Vallecano. That match against United did not go well. We had 0 shots. And we followed it with a 0-0 draw. And now I'm starting to panic. At least we can rely on Malaga's terrible defending to go along with their terrible kits to allow Rafael Leao to break our barren spell. Nothing they could do about that second one he got. That was all talent. Unbelievable strike. Back to the 0-0s again. The final game of the year, Moukoko was given a chance and absolutely took it, scoring 2 beautifully finished goals off the back of great attacking runs. More of that, please. Once again, Consigli hasn't played so much, so we sent him out on loan to Porto for some first-team football. Unfortunately, we also sold Vitor Roque for a loss to Atletico Madrid for 18 million, where he has scored 2-2 already. And guess who he scored his last 2 goals for the club against? Good guess, Atletico Madrid, in a 2-0 league win, funny enough. It's a shame it didn't work out. Pedri kept the run going, scoring the only goal in the next game. But out of nowhere again, we got spanked 3-0 by Villarreal. We went to Austria in the Champions League to play Salzburg in the snow with a white ball. Still won 1-0 though. It was probably a lot warmer in Greece, where we beat Olympiacos in the next Champions League game with the same scoreline. Still only good enough for a 12th place finish though, meaning we had to play a playoff, and there were some huge teams in there to avoid. And of course, we got another Spanish team in Sevilla. And another loss racked up in the league. 2 losses in 1 month puts us back on level points with Real Madrid, annoyingly. It's time for other players to step up and help Rafael Leao out. Moukoko and Ansu Fati especially. I'm looking at you two. Leao was tremendous again in the cup against Mallorca, scoring and setting up Moukoko for a showdown against Real Madrid in the quarterfinals. But we gave away a penalty after just 2 minutes in that game. Not great. Luckily, a wonderful pass by De Jong found Leao, and it's 1-1. And I bought Upamecano because he is fast, but apparently nobody was holding down the sprint button here, or Endrick is so quick that everybody else looks like they're in slow motion. So, we're out of the Copa del Rey. But in the Champions League, we are still fighting, and the match away to Sevilla, we put on a second half masterclass, including this unbelievable strike by Pedri for the second goal. And we gave ourselves a huge advantage going into the second leg to get to the round of 16, which we cruised through 5-0 on aggregate, as well as winning all of our league games in February and the first match in March. But again, it's El Clasico time. We also drew against Manchester United in the Champions League, which happens right after the match against Real Madrid. Another El Clasico meant we can get revenge for our cup exit, but we couldn't clear our lines and Tchouaméni scored. In the second half, though, we remained patient, and eventually a deflected shot landed at the feet of Moukoko, who got the equaliser. 1-1 was the finish. But it's time to get serious in the Champions League, and we started so well from Ansu Fati. Andros led the line in this game and played well, but the second goal came from the left, which was met by Pedri. And we take a 2-0 lead into Old Trafford. Doing what we do best though when we lose to Sevilla in the league after comfortably beating them twice in the month before. And when Garnacho scored first at Old Trafford, I feared the worst. However, Koundé found space down the right and his cross was tapped in to equalise on the night before a piece of magic by Pedri turning United defenders inside out and securing our place in the quarterfinals of the Champions League against Liverpool of all teams. Before that though, we got revenge on our Catalan rivals as we beat Espanyol comfortably 3-0, as well as a great performance against Bilbao at home where we enjoyed goals from Andros as well as Moukoko, who got the fourth in this 4-1 win. Speaking of Andros, he got the only goal of the game against Liverpool, in the first leg anyway. While all this was going on, Real Madrid had been having a honking time dropping some points, allowing us to open up a good lead at the top of La Liga now. A very fortunate 93rd minute winner gave us confidence against Almeria to stay ahead of Liverpool in the second leg. But it was always going to be difficult at Anfield, and they levelled the aggregate scoreline when their fullbacks combined. However, an unknown hero was coming to emerge from the Barcelona ranks. A 22-year-old Arnaud Pradas came off the bench to score the winning goal of the tie. Certainly not a player that I expect to continue in the first team anytime soon. But a Champions League semi-final was set against Bayern Munich, and our form going into that game wasn't too convincing. Another loss in the league. Just your reminder that we sold Talles Magno to Bayern Munich just 5 months previous. And to say that he had been prolific for them would be a complete understatement. 16 goals already for them. So I will give you one guess who scored the only goal of the game in the first leg. The game before the second leg though, Moukoko went from barely scoring to scoring the first half hat-trick. And 3 incredibly well-taken goals too, might I add. And even in the second half, he picked up the fourth in a 6-1 win at home to Celta Vigo, which put us just one game away from lifting the league title for a third season in a row. And now we focus on the semi-final match against Bayern Munich. Once again, only one goal was scored in the 90 minutes, and the deadlock was finally broken in the 84th minute by Ansu Fati, taking the game into extra time where De Jong found himself in space and smashed it into the top corner. What a goal. And to add salt to the wound, Ansu Fati scored a third to send us into the Champions League final against PSG, of course. Our focus went to the Girona match at home to claim the league title once again, which Ruben Neves put us on the score sheet to do so with this strike. Straight after that, Fabio Moretti popped up with a second, and we are champions once again. Last game of the season, we got thumped by Atletico Madrid 3-0, and Vitor Roque scored. Despite losing 6 games this season, we still won the league by 4 points, and we need to improve next season in case Madrid come firing back. Unfortunately, Porto only played Consigli 10 times. I think he's cursed, but this time he has still improved. I just wish Nascimento played him more. Imbobio played a lot for Mallorca, and it certainly shows. This guy's improved a lot. Anderson played a bunch, but didn't exactly improve much nor play well. Andros has been a fantastic squad player here at Barcelona and really developed well this season. That's the kind of growth I was hoping to see. But anyway, it's Champions League final time. Here we go. It was a very tense start until a mistake by Ruben Neves allowed former Barcelona player Ferran Torres to score. Not good. But it gets worse, as another former player, Frank Kessie, moved to Paris, then doubles their lead with an outrageous strike. From kickoff though, we finally get into the game and our talisman Leao is set free to pull one back. And in the second half, he is there to capitalise again from Hakimi's mistake, and we are back on level terms. But then, another 2 former players in Dembele and Ferran Torres combine, and PSG score a third goal in the 84th minute. And hold on to lift the Champions League trophy at Old Trafford. Never mind. I've got £73.5 million on my profit-only bank. And what this team is lacking is goals. We can't keep relying on Rafael Leao from the wings if we want to win the Champions League. However, I feel like we already have the answer in Andros. But of course, we need Nascimento to realise that. Andros could be world-class as a striker if he's given the opportunity. Currently, his favourite is still Ansu Fati, who still looks good, but his stats, especially goals, isn't cutting it. Gotta be aware of this too. PSG are trying to sign Jurrien Timber, but that's way too low to accept. Now, I like Timber, but if they did come in for over £100 million, I'm accepting that because there's a signing I really want to make. And within a week, they are back at it again, so let's try and push them from 70 million to 115 million, and surprisingly, they're okay with paying the extra 45 million on top. And of course, he accepts the move and we say goodbye to Jurrien Timber, who we bought in for almost half the price 3 seasons ago at 62 million. So with 188.5 million pound now, I genuinely thought about bringing Araujo back for 81 million. I also nearly went for Reece James, but because of the England counting as a foreign player, I couldn't, so instead, I'm going for Pedro Porro of Spurs, who is seeking Champions League football. And this should be fairly easy contract to negotiate, and you might be wondering why I'm replacing Timber with a right back. You see, Nascimento has been playing Koundé at right back, who I don't think is the best option for that attacking fullback, and I'd rather see him play centre back. And Nascimento has been using Upamecano and Kalulu as a centre back partnership. 2 bids already coming in for Pedri and another here from Liverpool, and he has a £150 million release clause in his contract. Another little gem my scouts have found though is from Bulgaria, who cost absolutely nothing in comparison and could grow into a world-class player or just a huge profit after a couple of long spells. Now, I'm fed up with messing around with Liverpool. If they want Pedri, they will have to cough up the £150 million release clause. They don't. Atletico Madrid are trying to sign my youngster Ivan, who I have been loaning out, but I ain't selling it to them. He is, however, going to go out on loan again to Almeria for regular starts at the club with perfect training facilities. They're even better than ours, and we're bloody Barcelona. I think my scouts just found the best Saudi Arabian player I've ever seen. These mentals on this player is phenomenal. And he's interested to sign, and I'm super tempted to bring him in. In fact, I have to bring him in. I can't resist, and you haven't been watching me long enough to think otherwise. This Benfica striker is another talent I'm almost pulling the trigger on, and I may have to bring in too. Speaking of Portuguese players, I'm trying to offload Ruben Neves now that I've brought in Al Jahani, because I also have Fabio Moretti, who I'd rather give the game time to. Speaking of game time, Moukoko is going out on loan because he doesn't get much here, so he gets some at Rome. Al Jahani will miss the first couple of games of the season with an injury, unfortunately. And the first game of the season, we missed 25 shots on goal, which led to a 0-0. The only good thing was that he did indeed play Andros up front, although obviously it was 0-0. However, I pulled the trigger on Pedro Pereira from Benfica for £41.5 million, which was his release clause. And I think it was a very good move indeed, because within 10 minutes of his debut starting up front, he combined with Rafael Leao to score against Girona. Of course, both are Portuguese, so that's great, and Pedri made it too on the 20th minute. But don't worry, Andros played from the right-hand side and he set up Pereira for his second in this 3-0 win. Straight into a 1-0 defeat against a team who could only get one shot on target. On deadline day, I'm accepting a loan for Consigli for first-team football at Villarreal. He's only come off the bench once so far in 3 games. And as he leaves, a bid for Ruben Neves comes in too, which we accept for Inter Milan. But he snubs the move annoyingly. Our rivals Real Madrid are busy, signing 3 players on deadline day in Wijndal, Garnacho and Mukiele, taking their total tally to £170 million this summer alone. And they have, of course, won all 3 games so far already this season. With our focus this season being to try and win the Champions League, it's not got off to a good start, losing 1-0 at home to Dortmund. It got a lot worse when Inter Milan absolutely knobbed us 5-0. Pereira is looking lethal in the league though, scoring 2 fantastic goals, breaking the defensive line and the offside trap. So maybe the league form has been much better. Well, not really, no. It's great to see Leao and Pereira link up well though, and is something we can hopefully benefit from, and especially if the likes of Ansu Fati and Andros gets involved too, we should be absolutely fine. But my god, we need to see a lot less of the losses in the next part of the season, especially in the Champions League, and luckily against Feyenoord we took an early lead within 6 minutes. But then we conceded an equaliser almost immediately, and then somehow we find ourselves 2-1 down at home when Jimenez scores. Pedro Pereira is there though to score, give us his second, and give us a 2-2 situation, before Andros found Leao with a wonderful cross and header. We take the lead again, and Pedro Pereira is there once again to make it 4-2, and we are only 28 minutes in. That's his hat-trick. He went on to score 4 goals in this 6-3 win. Absolutely mental. But this type of form carried on, and our new striker continued to score fantastic striker-like goals. And October was full of only one thing: wins. Pereira is absolutely loving his time in the Champions League as well, and it is exactly what we have been needing this whole time, for searching for a striker since Season 1 really, when Lewandowski got himself injured. He's been so consistent and scoring my favourite types of goals, including getting another hat-trick in the Champions League. We are picking up injuries though, and having to play a lot of fringe players. And that has started to cost us points once again. Failing to win in our second trip to Milan this season already, just before the first El Clasico of the season. It was at home and the new camp was silenced when Real Madrid's new signing scored the opening goal. Ansu Fati pulled us back level from the penalty spot, and there was another penalty given in the 96th minute, and it was Ansu Fati to take, but he missed, and Courtois denied and broke our hearts. We remained unbeaten during this period, but 3 draws in a row definitely hurt us, because Real Madrid just aren't losing games, and we are already 6 points behind them, as well as trailing in the league phase of the Champions League. The winter period, however, started to get a lot worse for us, because we also played PSG again, and they completely dominated us, and their team is frankly disgusting. They beat us 3-1 at home after going 2-0 up against us. The Catalan derby started with a penalty in the first half dispatched by Leao, and then I was very happy because Pedro Porro had returned from injury and had an instant impact, setting up Andros for our second. And the young Mexican, who has been finding his feet on the right wing, peeled away from his defender, and Pedri's pass found him for a second and a third for Barcelona. Bruno Fernandes broke the deadlock against Atletico Madrid, and we could only steal 1 point from Ansu Fati's substitute appearance. A rough winter period with only 3 wins in our last 9 games. And our league charge has been hurt because of it, now 10 points behind the still unbeaten Real Madrid, and our Champions League future is also in jeopardy too. Goals wise, Pereira and Leao both have 17 so far with 3 assists, but look how good our 2 lone players are doing elsewhere. Consigli and Makoko have been having both great spells of first team football, as is the Bulgarian Ranchev, who by the way are loaned to Napoli for first team football as well. I haven't been mentioned the Ballon d'Or either, and that's because Mbappe has won every single season somehow. By the way, the expiring contracts list is a little bit crazy this season, with Jadon Sancho and Victor Osimhen to name a few, but I won't be making any moves here. I believe in these bunch of crazy lunatics who just need time to develop and take us to our ultimate goal, and hopefully a lot of luck considering we aren't the manager. Which, by the way, you can see in the top right here under my career statistics, yet to manage a single game, but rocking the best Afro-Tash combination in Spain. The actual manager Nascimento is back, putting on a show by the way, just a casual 7-3 win, followed by a 9-1 win in the Cup. And from those 2 results, right into a scrappy 1-0 win with the only goal from a penalty box scramble. In the Champions League, we go behind early against Aston Villa. Not great. It took until the second half before we could get on the score sheet too from Leao. And in the game we desperately need to win, we leave it so late as Pereira scores the winner in the 89th minute. And yet we still lose to Partizan in our final league phase game. But we just about qualify in 21st place with only 10 points. And we face Wolfsburg in the playoff round. Real Madrid just still not losing games though. We are trailing them by 10 points. No transfer activity in January other than loaning this 6'4", 16-year-old from our youth academy out for first team football. We are also losing Neves on a free transfer at the end of the season to PSG, but no biggie. Back-to-back wins in the Copa del Rey against Girona and Vallecano. But with the second leg of the semi-final to play at a later date, it's one of those Madrids who also make it to the final. We played Cadiz in the league, and in the first half it was absolutely superb, starting with an Andros goal. The man of the match in this 6-0 win rightfully went to Ansu Fati, however, who scored a hat-trick. Although the second was a deflection from Leao's shot, but it was credited to Ansu Fati as a first half hat-trick, which put us in great form going into the Champions League against Wolfsburg, but they had other ideas, taking an early lead, and the goal scorer Scott caused us trouble down that left, creating the second, and now we are really in trouble. In the second half at the Nou Camp, by the way, we somewhat recovered with a goal from Andros, and from that loss into another in the league against Atletico Madrid. In Wolfsburg though, we were awarded a penalty and Leao did score it. But that only took the game into extra time and we needed an Ansu Fati goal late on to sneak into the round of 16 to face Man City, which was genuinely our next game, and Ansu Fati was the hero in the first leg this time round, scoring the only goal, this time from the right hand side. To say we shut out Guardiola's team was an understatement too. They were really poor. I'm sure when we get to the Etihad it will be a completely different story. Our league form hasn't been convincing though. Gavi popped up with a rare goal. In Manchester though, we got one shot on target all game. That was after 6 minutes from Andros. However, in an identical scenario in the second half, Man City scored their only goal through Yeremy Pino. And despite us having horrific player ratings ourselves in this game, we held on to a 2-1 aggregate lead. We bagged another 1-0 in the semi-final second leg in the Copa del Rey from our left back Balde. And we can almost shift our focus away from the league as we ain't catching Real Madrid, who still haven't lost a game, and we're in the quarter-final against Bayern Munich, as well as the Copa del Rey final against, yes, you guessed it, Real Madrid. And that's all happening in the next 4 games. The first leg was in Munich of the Champions League and Bayern scored early from the penalty. We shook that off though and swiftly equalised from Pedro Pereira after a beautiful overlap from Koundé, and 5 minutes later Leao was putting us into the lead from the spot. But once again, Bayern Munich scored from another corner, and the same man who reacted first last time put us back ahead within 5 minutes with a wonderful finish, 3-2. And check this out, De Jong's tackled the player in our box and then just freezes, gets tackled himself, and it's 3-3. What is he doing? Thankfully though, Pedro Porro was on fire today and his run down the right never stopped. He cut inside and belts one into the corner to give us a 4-3 first leg win. However, before this game was up, Bayern Munich were on a fast break and Kalulu took one of them down to receive a straight red card, meaning he will miss the next couple of games, and it was in the 95th minute too. Back to the Nou Camp though for the second leg, which didn't start great when Cherki broke free and smashed in the goal to make it 4-4 on aggregate. Having Andros as a winger who is right-footed came in clutch as he received the ball and stayed wide before cutting it back perfectly for Pedri to slot home to put us 5-4 ahead. Still, with the tie in the balance in the second half, we needed some magic and Pedro Porro did that by picking out Pereira to give us a 2-goal advantage. And not long after that, he turned that 2-goal advantage into 3, putting us into the semi-final against the team that beat us in the final last season, PSG. We didn't have such luck in the Copa del Rey final, however, as Garnacho found Hendrick's run and they scored the only goal of the game, which pretty much guarantees a domestic double for Real Madrid. And we have really fell off in the league after that game, including against Real Madrid in the last El Clasico of the season, who dominated us. They still haven't lost, by the way, and now we're in third. We had an obscene amount of injuries going into the PSG game. I felt sick. And we were going to need some luck if we were going to defeat the current holders at home, and we got that when Leao's shot deflected off Marquinhos into the net. And Pedro Porro, who had to play further up the pitch because of those injuries, was great, and he scored an unexpected second against the run of play. And just like that, it all hangs in the balance for the second leg. We still have all our players out injured, but we somehow held on with our makeshift team without conceding a single goal. And our run of games after that was absolutely horrific as well, only winning 2 games in the league. We finished miles off the top spot, by the way, in third place too, behind Real Sociedad by 6 points, with Real Madrid going unbeaten all season. But it's the Champions League final time against Liverpool. Once again, with players like Pedro Porro and Gavi missing out, Liverpool took the lead from Luis Diaz peach curled into the top corner. But almost straight from kickoff, we carried the ball down the other end and it drops to Rafael Leao to bang in an equaliser. But this is where it all went downhill as Ivan Nilsson scored from what looked like an offside position to put Liverpool back in front. And from a corner, still in the first half, it's played back into the box and Brennan Johnson at the back post makes it 3-1. But with 75 minutes on the clock, we mounted a comeback and Pedro Pereira was the man to bag that goal. Could this happen? Well, as you can see, not really, because from our kickoff, defence fell asleep, Luis Diaz scored a second. And Liverpool cap off the win to lift the Champions League trophy and break our hearts with an Ivan Nilsson 5th goal, which is our second Champions League final loss in a row. I'm feeling rather unlucky not to win anything this season with how well we've been playing. A lot of goals, including from the 2 main loaned out players in Consigli and Makoko, who have developed very well. Consigli can now definitely come into the rotation and really help us out next season. I'm still a little uncertain on Makoko though, simply because of how good the rest of the team is. The Bulgarian 6'6" Ranchev, though, will be coming back into the midfield rotation after playing very well for Napoli this season. And I also want to keep Ivan around next season as he looks like quality defender in the centre and on the left. We haven't checked the finances for a while. There's only £113 million left to pay off for the loan. Liverpool are back though, bidding for Pedri, and unfortunately they need reminding that he has that £115 million release clause in his contract for a reason. Now, I ain't going to accept anything less for the attacking midfielder. Although he does have a year left on his current deal, so to be safe, I'm going to offer him a new deal and keep that £150 million release clause in there, as I'd be happy for him to go for that cost anyway. Undecided whether to keep Mbomio around or loan him out again, as he's not quite first team ready for us yet, but could be a good fringe player. My scouts though have done it again though, finding an insane attacking midfielder for a very cheap valuation, probably because he's in the Belgian division right now at Ghent. I couldn't resist him and I got a £21 million offer accepted and agreed to a nice contract with him to bring him to the new camp. Just 20 years old as well. This signing also made sense because Gavi is in the last year of his contract and is very unhappy about not winning the league and wanted by Liverpool, which means he also doesn't want to renew his contract either. So I think I've got to cash in while I can, so I offer him out for a transfer. I need a good backup goalkeeper, and Mamardashvili has a ridiculously low release clause on him. And that's when I realised that Valencia were relegated last season, which I completely missed if I'm honest. On the same day as both De Jong and Leao announced their contract extensions, Gavi's decided he wants to stay. So I'm not complaining, let's get a new contract on the table and signed and have the best midfield in the world. Interesting offer from Villarreal for Makoko. It's only a loan but with an optional future fee and could go up to £33 million, but they are saying they want to play him as a regular starter, so I'm actually going to accept this deal. PSG offered a similar deal but only as a squad player, so that's a no from me. We once again start the season off with a bang. Just kidding. We lost 1-0 to Girona. Also, considering we had no injuries, it was a strange team sheet with him choosing Ivan over Kalulu and Koundé at centre-back. The academy player is good, it's just still a bit unexpected really. In the second game, Nascimento backed his choice and it seemed to pay off. We needed a bit of luck to get ourselves ahead with our first goal, with Balde's shot looping over the goalkeeper. But then it was back to our usual best. Pedro Pereira knocking in our second goal. Good to get him on the score sheet early, and then Mbomio off the bench to snatch the third. Still no goal contributions for Leao though. Champions League fixtures are in and we've got Liverpool first game and Manchester City at the Etihad. Deadline day came and Bayern Munich are putting in a £54 million bid for Al Jahani, which I'm rejecting. A second bid of £72 million came in and it's still not good enough for me. Deadline day passed and I just made 2 signings. Another win going into our hardest game so far against Atletico Madrid, which didn't have a goal in it until Nicholas Jackson scored for Atletico deep into the second half, but we fired back almost immediately with a fantastic ball over the top for Consigli to equalise. And then the Italian forward got a second 10 minutes later to put us back into the lead, but in the 93rd minute, Bruno Fernandes popped up with a clutch second for Atletico and it was 2-2. Straight into the Champions League days later and Pedri, who has been on Liverpool's radar for the last 2 seasons now, scores against them at the new camp. Brilliant. But we couldn't double our lead and unfortunately, Gavi Jesus got an equaliser to kick off our campaign. 3 draws in a row as we got another 2-2, this time to Villarreal. To the most hilarious own goal as well in the 86th minute while we were 2-1 up. Like, what is that? But at least we won the Catalan derby 4-0. Fun enough, it puts both us and Real Madrid on 11 points as they've had a bad start too, with Sevilla and Betis both at the top of the table. Penalty in the Champions League against Leipzig and Pereira steps up and smashes it down the middle. In the second half, we luckily kept it 0-0 until Andros worked a bit of magic and scored the first goal of the game. And the floodgates opened then, and as Al Jahani nutmegged the goalkeeper, he made it 2. And once again, probably one of the best players in the world, Andros, makes it 3 off the post, which was also the same result in Copenhagen in the next game. We clashed against top of the league Sevilla, and they continued their good run of form and went 1-0 up. But the striker for this game for us was Mbomio, who came in with an equaliser as the game finished 1-1. 2 other wins in this month in the league without conceding a goal as well. But that was still only good enough for 6th place, with Betis overtaking Sevilla at the top, but playing 1 more game than them. But we just keep grinding out good results. And some good individual performances too, including against Getafe with this hat-trick from Ansu Fati. The result was a great 6-1 win, but he was the star man of the match, and even though the final goal was a penalty, still a good one. We kept winning games, putting us in the best form for El Clasico. Before then, Roma in the Champions League, and Baldanzi fired them in the lead on the hour mark. Luckily though, Balde was released down the wing, and his exceptional cross was met by Andros, whose unreal header nestled in the net. But all smiles disappeared when in the 92nd minute, Timothy Weah popped up with a second for Roma. However, in the 95th minute, there was still time for late drama as Pedri smashed in a late equaliser. The Etihad wasn't quite as good. We were 2-1 up within 3 minutes to go and lost somehow. Anyway, league-wise, second behind Betis, but with a game in hand and only a point, but it's time for El Clasico. Champions League currently sat in the playoff positions after 5 games. And El Clasico was chaotic as ever, with a deadlock being broken 27 minutes in from a Real Madrid own goal. However, almost from the kickoff, a deep cross was met by Vinicius Jr., whose header brought the game back level. Right on the stroke of half-time, another Barcelona attack and a blocked volley from Andros fell to Pereira, who put us back in the lead. And just after half-time, we were rubbing our hands in excitement after Rafael Leao put us 3-1 up. But with this being at the Bernabeu, it was never going to be easy, and Militao gave Real Madrid hope. Hope that was kept until the 90th minute when Brazilian Endrick equalised, killing our 3-1 lead that we had minutes earlier. Overall, it was a great response after this disappointment, and we went on to win 4-0 at Villa Park in the Champions League. So I was wildly confident going into the game against Betis, especially with Pereira putting us a goal ahead just 9 minutes in. But then the wheels really started to fall off as Satriano pulled it back to 1-1 before half-time. And a couple of set-piece goals later, and all of a sudden, we found ourselves 3-1 down. Hopefully, though, a comeback, right? Nope, wrong. Rodri made it 4-1, and in the 79th minute, Umar Sadiq made it 5-1, and that is why Real Betis are not to be messed with. But our fantastic run of form outside of that put us top of the league, although it's very tight with Villarreal on the same points, and Betis could also join us on that 40 points too. At the turn of the new year, it's Pereira who is topping the goal-scoring charts with 19 goals in 19 games, and it's good to see Makoko scoring well while out on loan. Pedro Pereira's growth, though, for a 20-year-old has been absolutely outrageous too. Already one of the world's best strikers, and again, he's 20. Speaking of world's best, we finally have a different Ballon d'Or winner, as Brian Cherki of Bayern Munich wins this year, but Rafael Leao did finish in 3rd place. Although the year started off with an extremely late goal from Andros, January was bloody perfect. Beating Real Madrid in the Supercopa final 3-1. Progressing through the Copa del Rey, albeit in extra time, and spanking Rangers in the Champions League 5-0, in which Pedro Pereira also scored 4 goals too, to then hammering Sporting in the Champions League 7-0. And no shock really, but Pereira got 4 goals in this game too. All the while, we were keeping a 100% record this month in the League 2, meaning that we racked up 8 wins in a row. In La Liga, this sat us on the exact same record as Real Betis after 21 games, with our players dotted all over the player stats. In the Champions League, it was a big rescue to sit us in the top 8, meaning we wouldn't have to play that extra round and could rest instead. We bounced Oviedo out of the Copa del Rey next comfortably, but then that's when we got the unlucky draw to face Real Madrid, but lucky enough to get an own goal in our favour. They equalised 4 minutes later though through Vinicius Jr., but the game went to penalties, and that's where it all went wrong unfortunately, because Real Madrid, they didn't miss any penalties, but we missed 3, and it didn't even get to the last of the 5 takers before we were completely eliminated. So in the next game against Atletico, we just paid the goalkeeper to move out of the way of the penalty. Simple. In fact, the whole game was rather scrappy, and I was worried when they pulled a goal back to make it 2-1, but then Upamecano scored a 3rd in the 94th minute. Happy days. Andros was in exceptional form, smacking in a free kick against Espanyol, and in a 3-0 win, he picked up 2 goals and a man of the match. Outside of the Real Madrid Cup tie, it was another great month, and now our eyes turn to the Champions League, where we pulled Aston Villa in the draw, a team we already beat. Still under Unai Emery, they've built a very interesting young side full of talent. I had my eyes on their left back a couple of seasons ago in fact, but we never pulled the trigger. And before our trip to Villa Park, we were in top form, beating Sevilla 3-0. But we did not take that form to Villa Park, as Marcus Leonardo gave Villa the lead just 10 minutes in, and actually the young Brazilian doubled their advantage before half-time and we were in big trouble. We had to rely on a 94th minute consolation goal by Pedro Porro in this first leg. My optimism in the second leg increased because it only took us 10 minutes to get on the score sheet and level the aggregate score. But that didn't last too long because Marcus Leonardo scored his third of the tie, giving Villa the lead again. But we can all hail the 6'7" Anderson, who has been playing in the B team, who came off the bench and scored in the 96th minute. Taking this tie into extra time where we broke the Villa hearts as Ansu Fati scored the last goal of the tie. That was a real close one. But guess who we pulled in the next round? Bloody Real Madrid, of course. We also started to take a dip in our league form, losing 2 on the spin against Vallecano and Villarreal, meaning Real Betis could actually leapfrog us if they win their game in hand. But they were going to have to be great because we just kept winning after this, however. It was back to the Champions League at the Bernabeu, and Real Madrid carved us open and scored through Pedro Neto. We didn't quit, however, kept pushing and eventually got ourselves a goal from Rafael Leao's header to go into the second leg 1-1. And at the new camp, we played the beautiful football we knew we could, and within 6 minutes, Andros was putting the ball into the Madrid net. We couldn't add to this though, and in the second half, Endrick's shot crept in off the bar to take the game into extra time. But this is where we stayed composed, and Consigli's run was excellent down the left, and the cutback was scored by Pedro Pereira, and we avoided penalties this time round. Weirdly, we played Real Madrid again in the league right after, and we bashed them 6-2. And against Sociedad next, we snatched 3 points of a late goal from Rafael Leao, which actually gave us a 10-point lead in the league, and somehow Betis have fallen off a cliff. They've dropped 8 points in their last 4 La Liga games. And as fate would have it, we play them next to win the league title back from Real Madrid's hands. The Champions League gave us Manchester City in the semi-final draw, and Al Jahani put us in a spot above her because he got himself sent off in the first leg after 26 minutes. To pile on the misery, Yeremy Pino scored on the hour mark to make the challenge even harder, but Nascimento's tactics have definitely been a lot better this season, and Pedro Pereira equalised, and in the 93rd minute, we still kept putting the pressure on City, and Fabio Moretti smashed home a second to give us the advantage going into the second leg at 2-1. A very important 2 games in front of us now. Kicking things off in the Betis game with a couple of fantastic set-piece goals, with the first coming from Ansu Fati giving us the first half lead. Doubled by the Bulgarian Ranchev, who rose tallest from the corner. Betis have been fantastic this season and carried on fighting to the end, even scoring a goal, but Nascimento has done it. Barcelona are champions of Spain once again. He just needs to get us into that Champions League final for a 3rd season in a row, however. Erling Haaland has other ideas. Not only did he equalise the aggregate score, but within 20 minutes, he puts Manchester City into the lead. But another worldy free kick from Andros, a penalty from Pereira, and great play from this Barcelona side. In this second, we were leading 3-2 on the night before half-time. After all that chaos, we needed a security blanket, and Pedri gave us that in the 70th minute. And although Manchester City scored again on the 81st, we held on to the 4-3 win on the night and the 6-4 win on aggregate, giving us a showdown at the Stadio Olimpico against Arsenal in the Champions League final. The last 2 league games before the final was also wins, and Nascimento has got us purring going into our 3rd Champions League final in a row. And as just a director of football with no career stats whatsoever, I've just got to sit back and cross my fingers. On this day though, our 3rd attempt, just 1 goal happened, scored in my opinion by the best player in the world, Jose Eduardo Andros, in the 16th minute, helping Barcelona finally lift the Champions League. And Luis Nascimento has finally done it. With the help of me as the director of football, bringing the best players I could possibly find, only using profit made from the players I sold already at the club. Thankfully, these things that we love now are finally picked and played and allowed to develop, and Barcelona have well and truly reaped the rewards. All the while having the money in the bank again and really clearing 90% of the debt that the club had when I started this journey. And yes, it did take 7 seasons, but just as a director of football, Barcelona are European champion. Mission well and truly complete.